Let's talk about virtual reality.
Let's just talk about real reality.
No,
I flipped
real
the light
reality
on.
is boring.
I flipped the light on, and now it's time to get real.
There are no dragons in real reality.
How do you want to die?
How do I want?
I'm just saying. Let's.
This is a really dark podcast.
real reality.
If we're getting real.
A dragon.
Okay.
Wait, was that a real question? How do you want to die?
No, I was just mainly making a joke.
Oh, okay.
Just because instead of talking about virtual reality, I was trying to think about what's the most
It's
real
like
thing.
the only reality for Justin.
The
is
podcast
death.
room door is shut. We're in here. Like, we can't hear. We're isolated from the outside world. And I was just like, let's just get to know each other.
Well, if you could choose how to die,
Okay.
let's say you know that you're going to die
Peacefully, in my sleep.
in 5 minutes.
What?
All right.
Peacefully,
in 5 minutes,
in my
you
sleep.
will die. How would you like to go?
Peacefully, in my sleep. I've said this 3 times already.
5
I believe you.
minutes.
I believe you. Yeah.
Man, what? I don't even get like a week.
No. Well, what does it matter? What does it matter how long? It doesn't matter.
I mean, I would probably run away.
You just know that you are going to die.
How is it gonna happen? I don't know. You're throwing me for a loop.
You get to choose.
No, I suppose I would call my family.
So you want to die with your family on the phone?
Yeah,
Jeez.
Might want to make it a FaceTime.
yeah. Well, maybe I'll leave.
I think that actually might be more traumatic for them,
Yeah.
right? Like actually watching it happen. Wow.
Man,
Good
let's-
point.
I don't want to talk about real reality.
You
anymore.
brought it up.
No.
Okay.
I want to talk about virtual reality.
Back to
Fighting a
virtual
dragon would
reality.
be pretty cool.
Yeah, if a dragon just busted in the 4th floor of this office building and was like, "Bah!"
Right. I mean, I have to imagine that death by dragon is pretty quick. It's pretty swift. But
Which
you
is
get
like
a cool experience
smush.
before then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of dragons, though, you actually saw a VR demo with a dragon in
Yeah,
it.
I got
well done.
blasted in the face by Smog's fire on the Oculus Rift.
Yeah, I
Smaug?
heard that demo.
Smaug.
Schmaug.
It was really cool.
Jesus.
It was super cool.
So, I mean, that's the one that they're calling Thief in the Shadows.
Yeah,
So
Thief
walk,
in the
walk
Shadows.
us through it. What's
Yeah.
this? You put the headset on. Where are
Which
you?
headset is this?
This is the Oculus Rift Crescent Bay, right? And it was actually a slightly tweaked version of the one that we saw at CES. It had the headphones built in, and it might have had some more tracking LEDs.
Okay.
But so you put this thing on, and then you're in Smog's hoard of gold, and you can hear
You gotta say Smaug, dude.
Smaugs. I hate the way that they say that.
So is like the environment really dark? Is it like well lit, or is it like just pockets of light in there?
Pockets of light, pockets of darkness, and the gold all around you is glowing, and you can hear. It's got really good 3D sound, and you can hear that the dragon is somewhere you don't know where. So there's a lot of this like looking around, and then boom, suddenly he's there, like up in your face. Like it was really cool.
All up in your business.
All
And then
up
what
in
do you
it.
do? You run or do you? Are you
No,
Are you
there's no
controlling
running.
it, or is it? It's just
You're standing in place. You're looking around. It's very much feels kind of like being in like just a really good 3D movie.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the demos weren't terribly interactive, but this was of the ones I did definitely the best looking. And you put the headset on and you're just boom, like go. Like there's no like calibrating the
Yeah.
the lenses or anything like that. Like far and away, like it was the best that I used for just like
How long
instantly
is
being
it?
in
Sounds
the
like it's like
experience.
10 seconds long though.
It's a couple minutes. It's a couple minutes. It's not terribly long, but it's not that short either.
It sounds like it's kind of a test. Like it's a big Hollywood movie big
Yeah,
scene
property.
from Hollywood
Yeah.
property being tied to VR for kind of the first time. So it's
Yeah.
like, hey guys, like
Yeah, and I actually
is
asked them. I was like, "Who approached who? Like, did Weta come to you guys? That's Peter Jackson's digital production company.
named after the bug.
Named after what?
Named after a bug.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like a giant beetle.
And they actually weren't sure. They were like, "Oh, that's a good question. Who had approached who?" But it was just really, really cool.
And you said, "Stop dodging.
"Yeah,
I want the truth." The truth. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's something like that's not a coincidence or doesn't happen by accident, right? Like, so they're obviously kind of testing the waters for, and we already know that Oculus is trying to make VR, make movies that you can just watch, experience a whole movie in a VR environment.
yeah." There was actually like an Oculus Studios was credited on one of the demos. Like they have like a division within them for things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
I say.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys do the? I don't think you did, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. The beat up a car.
No.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Do you know about this one, Mark Ryan?
from Street Fighter.
As a fighting game guy, you know that there's a Street Fighter mini game where you just beat up a car
Yeah.
for some
Yes.
reason,
It's a Lexus too.
which is insane. There's a VR demo where you put a VR headset on and just go to town on a car, like in Street Fighter.
Is it a Lexus?
I don't-
Screw Lexuses.
I don't have
Wow,
an answer
did
for.
that
Let me get
start-
back to you on that.
Long time hatred of cars?
No,
like
just
Lexus
because of
cars?
Street Fighter.
Oh, okay. All right.
Lexuses are fine.
Okay, well that was it. That's another VR demo that we are gonna have a video.
Was that an
version.
Oculus one?
So
I don't know.
the Oculus one was super cool, and it was the least amount of strain on my eyes. But I have to say the one that I enjoyed the most was Project Morpheus, just because like it was such a surprise, and it also felt like the most like a game, and also the demos are probably like the most like inventive and emotionally engaging of any that I tried.
Interesting.
So, what were they?
Well, by far the best one is this one called The Heist, which was sort of like like a British like mob kind of thing. Like think of like the movie Snatch or like
You're
Lock,
hiding
Stock,
behind
and
cover. And
yeah. But well, it opens up and you're you begin it seated. Like the guy has you sit down and they put the thing on you, and then it opens up and there's a guy sitting across from you. And he's like this big, like thug kind of guy with a blowtorch, and he's interrogating you, asking you about like a robbery basically that went badly.
And you're looking all around. And
Yeah, and you're looking all around. And at first I was kind of like smiling and kind of laughing, like, wow, this is cool. But then he like suddenly like kicks out a table and starts really yelling at you, and I was like, whoa, like like you can't not like get a little,
Yeah.
a little startled by this. And then he's like lights that blowtorch and he's about to like go to town on you, and then his
Jeez.
phone rings, and he answers the phone, and this is the call at the last second that saves your life,
Yeah.
And he's like, stand up. And I didn't do it just because I wanted to like see if he would actually notice. And he's like, I said stand up. And then you get to your feet, and you have PlayStation moves in either hands, and you can reach out with the move and then use the trigger to grab the phone from him, and you bring it to your ear, and then you can hear like someone talking to you, and then that pulls you into sort of a flashback where then you're behind that desk, and you're in this dark room, and there are like security guards coming by occasionally. You have to duck down behind the desk, to hide from the guards, flashlight.
The move integration is really clever.
Yeah.
Like that's been kind of the missing link, and we've seen some other people demoing tech that a Kinect is probably going to be pretty good at this if they ever get their VR game together. So you can do things like fire a gun at someone in a way that feels natural and real. Like you rifle through a desk to
Yeah,
eventually
you rifle through
find
this
a
desk
pistol
and you find the gun, and then you have to. There are clips, and you grab a clip with the other hand. You have to like jam it into the bottom of the gun, which is just like super cool and satisfying.
Can't you like throw the clip, or you can throw things?
Yeah. Well, I had a flashlight
do you have
that I
to
didn't
tie
need, so I
the-
just tossed that.
Do you have to tie the move to your hand so you don't actually throw it?
I'm sure.
You don't, but I'm sure that they thought about that. I mean, there are
I
straps
think we're
on
gonna
these
get
things.
like Wiimote
yeah.
kind of straps for these things. Yeah.
So I haven't heard you describe this to me. It was Altano or someone else
Yeah.
was telling me about how they were so impressed with this demo, and it gave me the idea for like a VR prank.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there, and then you're cowering, and then you're standing up, and then you're shooting a gun.
Yeah.
And you have this headset on, and often in demos like this, they have a giant television screen that shows your perspective. So if anybody
So everybody else can see what you're doing.
So
yeah.
what I think they should do is what you're seeing in your headset is something completely different than what's on the television screen. Like,
Okay.
and then they could prank somebody in that way.
Well, how does the prank work?
Like
Maybe you're in some sort of embarrassing situation, like you're, I don't know what.
or I'm like cowering from teddy bears or
yeah,
something.
or
okay.
maybe you're in a sorority or something like that. Like I don't know. That was a weird.
That
place
was a
to
weird
go
go
with it.
too. Or maybe I see a big scary British guy. Everybody else sees like Barney the dinosaur, like
Yeah.
trying to hug me or something.
I said sorority because it's like you think you're fighting these like spy guys, but what if you're like some pervert, but you don't know it?
or I'm in like a
jeez.
pillow fight or
Yeah,
something with
exactly.
a bunch of cheerleaders.
Exactly.
Okay.
Again, the conversation's taking a very strange turn, guys.
Whatever. It's fine.
So, but Morpheus really kind of blew me away. Like, not just because it was like fun and inventive, but like visually, like it was close to like what you see on Oculus. And this is a PlayStation 4. That that everybody else has. It's not some custom $4,000 computer. That's generating all this.
Yeah, that's cool.
there's obviously going to be there's going to be many video games on Oculus. There has been people hacking games onto that platform forever, but they don't seem to have the ambition to do like traditional games the way that we think about, that everyone in this room, in this
Yeah.
building, and probably everybody listening thinks about games, where obviously that's Sony and PlayStation's bread and butter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they may get there first.
Yeah, and the thing that I played, that shootout, like when I first heard about the Wii, like this is the kind of game that I envisioned.
Yeah.
And like the Wii never lived up to, what I imagined it would be. And like this feels like
never
that kind
played
of
Red
thing
Steel,
finally.
then.
I was just going to say is it Real Steel or Red Steel?
Red
Steel.
Steel.
Yeah. It felt like what I thought Red Steel was going to be.
Real Steel's that
Which is
robot
awesome.
boxing movie.
Yeah, the Hugh Jackman thing.
I was just gonna say it's really interesting that you say that because, so Mitch Dyer and I were over at Valve's booth for an appointment with all the Steam-related items, and the new the HTC Revive, that headset.
Just Vive.
I know, but they're putting like the Re in front of it because that's how they brand all of their products right now.
Ugh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Stop it, guys.
Yeah. So Mitch, they only had enough time for one of us to take the demo, and Mitch ended up taking it.
What a jerk.
And so, but it was just so interesting seeing his reaction afterwards because he was totally pumped after that demo. I mean, there was one point where, he was very enthusiastically talking about preparing like a meal virtually, right? Where he's like, okay, like I have to take these two, basically like these handheld controllers, and as you were saying, similar to having those two moves in your hand, like I got to go to the fridge, I got to pull out these things, I have to like do this. Oh, I dropped one of the oranges, and I got to pick that up.
What's so funny about that is that Mitch doesn't even preparing meals in real life. He eats out every night.
Right? And so, I mean,
there are a lot of things I enjoy doing in games that I would not do in real life.
Yeah.
Looking in toilets.
What?
Shooting people.
Yeah.
Looking in toilets?
Eating those.
Do you not do that? Like there are games where they actually have like random collectibles or like
you
not
gotta
so.
drink that toilet water.
That's
It's
true.
Fallout.
That's a good point.
You have radiation. You just
Right.
drink the water.
I remember playing Duke Nukem 3D, and I just went around and flushed all the toilets because you could.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
But I don't do that in real life.
you
I
don't
don't
do it
flush
in
the
real
toilet.
life.
Link can use the toilet in Zelda.
Some people don't flush the toilet, and it's ridiculous. Adults.
In Duke Nukem?
Real life, dude.
Gross.
Real life.
But so there's that one end of the spectrum, right, where you're just talking about like cooking, which you could just do in real life and actually get something out of it, something to eat, right?
Sure.
And then the other end, there was the what they were calling the Aperture Sciences demo, where they had both Atlas and Peabody as a part of it, and ultimately you had to help fix. I think it was Atlas.
Yeah, I can't believe that didn't make bigger headlines that they showed off a new Portal stuff, like a VR Portal demo. Like that's a huge deal. Like Portal 2 is Game of the Year, one of the best games ever made.
Yeah. That's a game that'll give you motion sickness.
Yeah, it'll give you
in
something.
VR.
Mm-hmm.
It gets me so
It'll
excited.
give you something. What? Like syphilis, maybe?
No.
it'll give you motion sickness. There's
An
basically
erection.
nothing else. Okay, I can give you.
Or a
that.
lady boner in your case.
We're gonna have to like bleep this out. Like,
It's fine. It's a technical term, a medical term.
I think it's a little far from the local term for that.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's really exciting stuff. I'm excited to see, as a gamer, I've said before that I really think VR has as many or more applications than things like virtual tourism, walking around museums without the huge crowds, things of that nature. But, as someone that likes video games, super exciting, the idea of playing, Portal 3 or something in a VR environment, or a more traditional shooter spy game seems to make a tremendous amount of sense.
And they are talking a lot about that. It was really interesting because actually I was just talking to AMD earlier today partially about this aspect of it, the whole when are we actually going to see games that we're actually already accustomed to seeing on our, TVs in VR. And so
Like Tetris.
Kind of like, yeah, of course. Absolutely. You're going to move it with your eyes.
Mm-hmm. I do think
but
go ahead.
So one of the things they're talking about, also NVIDIA as well, they're talking about the back end technology of, trying to get like multiple GPUs to like power these headsets, trying to get enough, trying to use the technology, like asynchronous technology, to process things fast enough so that you can get that same level of shading and textures and the stuff that we expect now, that when you put on something like the Gear VR, which is, basically constrained by a mobile processor, what it can output as well visually, you're not going to see the same level of graphics as you would for, Unreal Tournament.
Yeah, I mean, things like Unreal Tournament or that what did you say it was called, the spy demo?
The Heist?
The Heist?
Yeah.
That's super rad. I think we're more likely to see, like, when Morpheus launches commercially, I think it's going to launch with something that's much closer to cooking. I think they'll have, like, a Cooking Mama type experience because, I don't know, it's all the same problems with AAA game development. Like, they have to meticulously detail an entire room that you're just going to run through, like, it's impossible. But if you can have like one kitchen that looks incredible and build up like gameplay systems that are really fun and, set high scores and keep cooking all these dishes. And if anybody hasn't played those games, maybe they sound silly, but they're not silly. Like, it's really fun trying to make things as fast as you can and time it right. Like, okay, put something in the oven, and then while that's baking, work on something else. Like that sort of mini game driven or experience driven, like have like one core gameplay loop in one place that then you can repeat over and over and have a lot of fun with. That makes a huge amount of sense to like kick VR off with something like that, I think.
Yeah.
I actually had a demo for the Gear VR. The game is called Gunner. We actually wrote about it very briefly last fall. It's just basically you're just in this gun turret, and you just have waves of ships coming at you. It's set in space.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and you just basically, wherever you swing your gaze is where you shoot.
Yeah.
So, like, you just have to kind of just be constantly scanning to see where the next wave of ships are coming. And then, like, progresses, like, wave after wave. And they just come at you faster. There are more ammunition being thrown at you. Like, then they start having, like, frigates, like, going by you and all that kind of stuff. So you have to, like, actually, like, do, like, the whole, like, okay, you have to track the trajectory of it and, like, kind of anticipate that when you shoot.
Yeah.
I like what you guys are saying. So I didn't follow a whole lot of what was happening with the VR at the GDCs, but I like what you guys are talking about. Like I like the Oculus is working with a movie studio to produce something that's movie-esque, right? Because that's something that I think we've speculated a lot on, is that VR would be fantastic for movie experiences, and it's cool seeing Sony develop, a more fully fledged game sort of scenario. Because that's also again kind of what's been speculated is that Sony getting into VR is like finally they're going to have big budget behind games for VR. They're going to have a vested interest in pushing it.
Sure.
And there's a lot of really cool stuff happening on the indie scene, but it's not gonna have the same
it'll be
visual
kind of strange,
impact.
esoteric stuff. And
Yeah.
I think the control aspect is still the aspect that has to be solved. Two move controllers, one in each hand, is a super clever potential solution, but it's kind of a problem. Like, it really only works for first-person games, obviously, for obvious reasons. And even then, it's kind of troublesome. Like you said, you're kind of aiming where you're tilting your head, which isn't like reality. In reality, you would be able to be looking one way, but still potentially aiming in another direction. Like, they have to solve that disconnect between you're manipulating buttons in your hands, but your VR character either doesn't have hands or they're doing something separate from what your hands are doing. Move controllers...
Wow, what are you doing with your hands?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I was just being accusatory for no reason.
I mean, what I'll be doing in my hands is potentially holding a PlayStation 4 controller, which won't feel that great. Like,
yeah, I wonder if...
Like, right now, so I can give you a concrete example. Right now, in every first-person shooter ever, besides, like, Halo, but the common thing is, you click a trigger, hold a button to aim down the sights of your gun and aim. Like, what do you do when you have a headset on and you're already looking where you're looking? Like, it doesn't feel...
Yeah, and to aim, I found myself closing one eye like you do, like, and that actually had me shooting better.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like, is this what I should be doing? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I think about something like Halo, for example, where you're lobbing grenades with a button and aiming and shooting with a different button, and Halo doesn't have alternate fire on their guns, but some games do that as well. Like, that's a little bit troublesome when you only have two hands and they're trying to make it really realistic. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, obviously, we can't just port over the standard like shooter experience. It has to be something.
It's not an unsolvable problem, but that's the problem that needs to be solved.
I think what you're bringing up is the fact that we have to. It's not just the VR technology we're waiting on. We actually also have to wait for all the human input devices that are going to basically spring up around these to actually take form and kind of gel. Because we saw the Sixth Sense system when they came in, I think it was like a month ago, to show off their lightsaber demo. I don't know if you guys got to try it.
I saw that. I didn't try it.
And so it's basically like this wireless, these two things that you hold wirelessly. It's like 5 different pieces. You actually can strap them to your legs as well, so it can actually track your full body movement.
Yeah, the thing in your hand looked kind of like the hilt of a sword or something, right? Just with no sword.
Yeah.
In the virtual environment, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a lightsaber.
Yeah.
But in the virtual reality, actually, it's your hand. So it's actually so it doesn't actually even look like the thing you're holding. It's just that you hold this, you reach forward, you press a button to basically do the same manipulation of your fingers to like grab the lightsaber and then like turn on the lightsaber or turn it off. So that feels better, obviously, than having like I've tried just seeing like the Move controllers. Like I'm not sure if like I would really want that feeling, but like that wand thing seems to be one option. I tried. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say the Move execution seems like it would work really well if you kind of extended that to gloves with, those move type lights on each finger.
Yeah.
Right.
The power glove's coming back.
Sure, why not?
But
Well, they already report
imagine
glove.
having like multiple functions mapped to different, fingers. Like if you did a 2-finger something, it would be different than if you did a 1-finger something, right?
I think just using these things, you'd be surprised how quickly your brain fills in the gap of like, I mean, moves don't have pistol grips, but like when I was holding and shooting, I mean, like as long as, the thing is moving just as much as my arm does, like the two things sync up, your brain really makes it feel like, that's my arm, I'm shooting, like even in really demos, that weren't nearly as, good looking visually, that I took as like as Morpheus, like when something just feels like it's, when you have an arm there coming out, where it should be, even if it's this crummy, like almost, like 16-bit looking arm, like your brain still thinks, hey, that's my arm.
They have to figure out how to solve movement as well. Like that's what's
Yeah.
enabled by an analog stick
That's
right now.
yeah. That's why we should talk about this one demo I took from Sulan. The Sulan Cortex is this super interesting VR headset that basically what it can do is it scans the room that it's in,
Right.
and then it scales your demo to that room. So I was in this like 10 by 20 room, and they put me in this demo that's basically like a 3D video of these two think of Neo fighting Agent Smith at the end of the Matrix, when they're in the subway.
Yeah.
It's basically that subway fight between a couple of different androids.
Neat.
And you can just kind of walk around and see it happen. But the really cool thing is that the wall in that room is exactly where, the wall is in real life, So you walk real close to the wall and you reach out to touch and, you touch the wall, right? Where it seems like it should be in VR. Yeah. It's really, really cool. And this thing, they're definitely, like, visually it's not as good as, like, the Oculus or the Morpheus. Like, it looks a little jagged, but, like, their whole thing with, just, like, spacing out the room is, like, incredible. Like, I feel like everybody is going in one direction, and Sulan is kind of trying to solve another problem over here. And I feel like they're going to crack it, and then someone else who's huge is going to buy them and then integrate that technology, like, into their thing.
Yeah.
I like
And
that.
they also, they had two versions. They had one with a cord, so there's basically somebody like holding my tail the whole time that I was doing this demo, and then they had another that was wireless, which was a lot jankier, but they're on their way, and then you don't need a cord, there's nobody to mind you. Like, it was really cool.
Yeah,
And
who even needs the real world, man?
I know, right?
I don't know. I feel like for me, like I think I may be the lone like dissenter on this, but it's like for me, I find augmented reality much more, engaging for my brain. I get like really weirded out when I'm in some of these VR demos, and
Because it is weird.
it is a little strange, but it's like it's very there's a huge sense of disconnect for what's happening with my body versus what my brain is seeing. And I think how you said it feels really natural after a while. For me, it still doesn't. Whereas like when I have like AR glasses on, and I took an AR demo while at the show this week, where I can still see my hands, and like when I like reach out to touch something, it actually for me feels like the way it actually feels because it is actually my body. So I'm actually really interested to see someday like maybe augmented reality games where like you're holding an augmented reality like gun,
Yeah.
and it actually is working based off of like how you're pulling the trigger, like if you actually have the sights lined up properly for you. Like for me, that's more exciting.
And then secretly, the military has like hacked into your headset, and then you're controlling a robot that's killing.
Yeah,
that's
so it's
killing
just gonna be
people
Ender's Game.
Your Ender's Game,
Yeah,
yeah.
It's spoilers, by the way, but
Sorry.
Spoilers for that 20-year-old novel.
yeah, they're like 30 years now.
It's maybe even older. Been a while.
I know. Yeah, I mean that's the thing with VR is as impressive as they get and the visuals and the actors and all that. If you look down and your hands in the VR environment aren't doing what your hands are doing in real life, it won't work. So whatever control aspect they come up with needs to solve for that.
Power glove.
Power glove.
But
It's so bad.
it's been just really interesting this whole week because we had a listener write in and say, how can you guys say that the market's really crowded when none of this has come to consumers yet? And
That's a good point.
And it's a good point, but I think just seeing all of this kind of starting to just kind of explode.
Yeah, I think it's surprising.
I feel like it is actually getting crowded enough to a point where it's actually going to force things that consumers finally will start to be able to get their hands on things. So, like, for example, the Gear VR store finally launched this week during Mobile World Congress. The game that I tried, Gunner, is actually available for purchase, I think like for $4.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can actually, if you already have the Samsung Gear VR, what do they call it, like the Innovator Edition, which is basically
Yeah.
the dev kit version. If you bought one for a Note 4, you can actually play that game right now, where you're, shooting things with your eyes, basically.
Yeah, and when you're talking about, that not much has come to the market yet, like a common theme that I saw was developers and manufacturers who are afraid of poisoning the well, like guys who like they don't want to put out a crummy VR thing, and then like have people have a bad experience, and then all of VR, gets this bad name, and then like, and then it just never happens.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of fear about that.
yeah,
You gotta get it right.
Yeah, but I mean, Sony is kind of going to force everyone's hand.
yeah, because they're coming out 2016.
Yeah, they said, first half of 2016, which is as close to a date as we've gotten from anyone.
Yeah. I mean, Oculus said something this year, but that's still super vague, whereas this is like a commitment to at least some kind of time window. So, I mean, I think in the later half of this year, if not, the beginning of next year, we'll actually start to see like things actually coming out for consumers. And then people can actually try this for themselves and see if they also like barf or don't barf,
Yeah.
or if I finally get some compatriots in the AR kind of like fan club as opposed to VR.
Exciting times.
It is exciting times.